Okay, we're going to go over 1.6. Today we're just going to go over the midpoint, so half of 1.6. The objectives are to develop and apply the formula for midpoint, and the vocab is coordinate plane, leg, and hypotenuse. Today we're just going to go over coordinate plane. Tomorrow we'll go over that. A coordinate plane is a plane that is divided into 4 regions by a horizontal line, the x-axis, and a vertical line, the y-axis. So I'm sure you guys have all seen before. 2 lines. This is the x-axis. This is the y-axis. And the location or coordinates of a point are given by ordered pair x, y. If you think about it in the alphabet, x comes before y, x, y, z. Okay, so x comes before y. So if we had a point here, this point would have the coordinate 4, because we went to the right 4, comma 3, because we went up 3. You guys all know how to graph points with coordinates, right? You learned this in middle school?
Yes.
So the x-axis is the horizontal line, and the y-axis is the vertical line. You can find the midpoint of a segment by using the coordinates of its endpoints. Calculate the average of the x-coordinates and the average of the y-coordinates of the endpoints. So we're going to go over an example of this. We're going to put it into a formula on the next slide. So the midpoint M of AB with endpoint A, so this point here, A, is x1 and y1, and B, the point here, is x2 and y2. The formula is this. So you take the average of the x coordinates, so you would add x1 and x2 and divide by 2. Then you would take the average of the y coordinates, so y1 plus y2 divide by 2. So the midpoint is going to be a point, like how we have the parentheses. It'll be a coordinate point, so it'll be a number, comma, another number in parentheses. If you guys had a list of formulas that you're keeping from Friday, remember how we had area, perimeter, those formulas, add this to the list, because this formula you're going to need to know and have it memorized. This is the midpoint formula. Yeah. It's not that hard. Once you get some practice with it.
It was close.
To make it easier to picture the problem, plot the segment's endpoints on a coordinate plane. So like how we did for 1.1 through 1.4, I told you every single time to draw it out. This is just saying a helpful hint would be to draw it out. So example 1, find the coordinates of the midpoint PQ with endpoints P and Q. So what's the formula we use?
The midpoint formula.
Yes, which is?
x1 plus x2 divided by 2.
x1 plus x2 divided by 2.
And then y1 plus y2 divided by 2.
Yeah. Divide by 2.
Yes. So here we have, this will be our x1, the negative 8. 3 will be our y1, because this is the first point, right? So this is the first x, that's the first y. Oh. There we go. So then we have x2 and y2, because this is our second point, and we have the second x and the second y. So we would have the midpoint would be, what's x1?
-8.
So we would add the x1 and the x2. So the x2 would be negative 2 over 2. So now we do the y1, which is 3. Plus y2, which is,
7.
and divide by 2.
3.5.
No, stop.
So negative 8 minus 2,
6, negative 6.
negative 8 plus a negative 2,
Negative 10.
negative 10
Stop.
over 2.
That's what I meant.
3 plus 7, 10 over 2. So the midpoint would be negative 5, 5.
Wait.
You were wrong.
If we look at the graph here, to go negative 5, we go to the left, negative 5, and then we would go up 5. So it would be, the midpoint would be that black point right there. Okay, now we're going to do another example. So find the coordinates of the midpoint of EF with endpoints E is negative 2, 3, and F, 5, negative 3. So we know our midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. So our negative 2, since this is our first point, negative 2 would be our x1, 3 would be our y1, and since F is our second point, 5 would be our x2, and negative 3 would be our y2. So now we plug these points into our formula. So the midpoint is x1, which is negative 2, plus 5 over 2, comma, y1 is 3, plus y2, negative 3 over 2. And then we can solve for the x-coordinate of our midpoint. So negative 2 plus 5 would be 3 over 2, 3 halves, and 3 plus negative 3 would be 0. 0 divided by 2 is just 0. So our midpoint would be 3 halves, comma, 0. So if we go over to our graph, we can plot 3 halves. So we go over 3 halves on the x-axis, and we wouldn't go up or down any because the x-coordinate is 0. So this point would be our midpoint, and it would be 3 halves, comma, 0. So our answer is just 3 halves, comma, 0. So M is the midpoint of xy. X has coordinates of 2, 7. M has coordinates of 6, 1. So it gives us now the midpoint and one of the endpoints. So we have to find the other endpoint. So we know that the midpoint, which is 6, 1, is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. So this is our first point. We can say that 2 is x1 and 7 is y1. And now we can say that y has the points x2 and y2. So 6, 1 is equal to, what's x1? 2 plus, we don't know what x2 is, so we just leave that as x2 over 2. What's y1? 7 plus y2, because we don't know what that is yet, over 2. So this is our x-coordinate of the midpoint. This is our x-coordinate of the midpoint. So we would set them equal. So 6 is equal to 2 plus x2 over 2. We multiply both sides by 2 because we're trying to solve for x2 now. So 12 is equal to 2 plus x2. Subtract both sides by 2. 10 is equal to x2. So we can now cross this x2 off and put a 10 because we know that x2 is equal to 10. Now we're solving for the y coordinate of the midpoint. So we have this, and we set it equal to the y midpoint. So we'd have 1 is equal to 7 plus y2 over 2. Multiply both sides by 2. 2 is equal to 7 plus y2 minus 7 minus 7. Negative 5 is equal to y2. So we can cross this y2 off and put negative 5. So our coordinates for y are 10, comma, negative 5. And that's our answer. Any questions? So S is the midpoint of RT. R has the coordinates of negative 6, 1, and S has the coordinates of negative 1, 1. So S is the midpoint. This is the midpoint. So we would set the midpoint equal to the formula that we have for the midpoint, which would be x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. And then R is the first point that was given, the first endpoint. So we could say that negative 6 is our x1, and negative 1 is our y1. This is the first point, so that's why these have the subscripts of 1. This is the first x, this is the first y, so this would be x1, this is y1. So now we can plug these into the equation that we have. So negative 1, 1 is equal to negative 6 plus x2, because we don't know what x2 is yet, over 2. We know what y1 is, negative 1 plus y2 over 2. We're saying that T has the coordinates of x2, comma, y2. And we're trying to find what x2 and y2 are because we're trying to find the coordinates of T. So we take the x coordinate of the midpoint, which was given to us as negative 1, and set it equal to the formula that we have for the x coordinate of the midpoint. So this would be negative 1 is equal to negative 6 plus x2 over 2. Now we have to solve for the x2, so we multiply both sides by 2. So we get negative 2 is equal to negative 6 plus x2. Add 6 to both sides, so 4 is equal to x2. So we know x2 is equal to 4, so we can cross this out and put a 4. So I crossed out the x2 and put a 4, because we know x2 is equal to 4. So now let's find what y2 is. So we set the formula that we have for the midpoint equal to the midpoint. So we would have 1 is equal to negative 1 plus y2 over 2. Multiply both sides by 2. So we get 2 is equal to negative 1 plus y2. Add 1 to both sides. 3 is equal to y2. So now we found what this y2 is, and it's 3. So point T is 4, 3. And that's our answer.